ripe as the berries in June. Red the rose, skin pale as the light of the moon, gently as she goes.
Welcome to Snark Theater, where bad fiction gets blasted. Last time we left off, Micah and Jean-Claude were engaged in a jealous bitch fight since old Fangface didn't feed the hors d'oeuvre and they couldn't decide who got to stake a claim in Anita's panties as a result. So they decided to try and murder each other. Personally, any attempt on Micah's life makes me want to dance with joy, but he just starts shifting into his leopard form to heal the wounds, while Jean-Claude starts to suffocate from having his throat ripped out. His skin glowed behind the coating of blood on his lower face like rubies spread across diamonds. His eyes were pools of molten sapphire flame. If fire could be cold, achingly cold. Wow. It's been a while since I've seen prose that purple, and it's still horribly painful to read out loud.
A poet he's not.
Yeah, well, not everyone is a best-selling crime novelist.
Anita and Jean-Claude call through the marks to Bichard, and Jason shows up to share power, which heals Jean-Claude. After this happens, Anita feels Belmort, Jean-Claude's creator, reaching through him and determines that she weakened his control of the hors d'oeuvre, which also shortened his temper and caused him to attack Micah. This is a pretty pathetic excuse to explain Jean-Claude losing his cool, but at least it's an attempt to make a little bit of sense. Still, he admits that he got too jealous, and he and Micah basically bury the hatchet out of respect that they nearly killed each other. Anita asks if Jean-Claude is strong enough to help her get Damien out, but he says he still needs to feed on blood, and Micah offers himself once again, proving that he has about as much self-preservation as a blonde with big boobs in a horror film. Or, you know, the creeper.
I like a girl who plays rough.
But she just tried to kill you.
You're young. You'll learn.
In Chapter 52, Jean-Claude takes a quick bath to clean up before returning to seduce Micah to death before feeding on him. I have to admit there is one funny bit about Jean-Claude's sexy glances that is worth sharing. I look back at Jean-Claude gliding towards us, catching a glimpse of his pale feet under the black robe against the white carpet. The look on his face was all for Micah. I felt oddly possessive, almost jealous, as if I should be defending Micah's honor. I'd never felt like this with Richard and Jean-Claude, but then Jean-Claude had never looked at Richard in quite that way, because Richard would have hurt him. Yes, I think we all know how that would have gone.
How you like me now, bitch?
Jean-Claude feeds on Micah, and as discussed before, it's apparently damn near orgasmic and starts turning everyone on, but at least Asher has the common decency to remind them that they have work to do. Didn't you need to get Damien out of his coffin? Asher's voice came out dry, making me draw back from Micah. Jean-Claude snarled at him, looking more inhuman than the entire time he was feeding. Asher stood in one smooth motion like a puppet pulled up by the strings. Fine, but if you're going to have sex, then I don't have to watch. I faced Asher. Look, I am so far from my comfort zone right now that I can't think. But I'll tell you one thing. I am not going to salve your male ego while the little voice in my brain is still screaming, "Run away, run away." So put the attitude on ice, Asher. I can't deal with it right now. He was suddenly vibrating with anger, his eyes like icy blue pools. So sorry that my discomfort annoys you. Fuck you, Asher. Oh boy. This is one of those moments where I wish Anita Blake was a real person, because I would without a doubt punch her right in the fucking face. Once again, Anita's self-righteous bitchery rears its ugly head. Asher is in the right, Anita, not you. All he did was remind you that you need to go rescue your vampire servant who has been trapped in a fucking coffin for 6 months. And you have the balls to yell at him about trying to keep your stupid ass on task? You've got it backwards, sweetheart. Fuck you. Rightfully so, this pisses Asher off, and he gets up in her face and tells her not to offer something she isn't willing to back up before leaving the room. In Chapter 53, Anita goes to the room where Damien is being held in a cross-covered coffin and finds out that there are actually 2 coffins in there. To her horror, the other person in the coffin is a vampire named Gretchen who tried to kill Anita in one of the earlier books because she wanted Jean-Claude for herself and has been in prison for 3 years. Understandably, this pisses Anita off because while she is a nasty, unfair bitch, she has somewhat of a moral code that extends to even the bad guys. She demands that they free both of them, but Jean-Claude says the process to revive an imprisoned vampire is extensive, and he can only do it 1 night at a time, meaning one of them has to stay in the coffin for 1 more night.
Oh, bitch, all these rules!
Somehow, they resolve to free Gretchen first, meaning that Jason has to donate his blood to revive her, and Jean-Claude will give his blood to retie her to him as her maker. They, of course, gloss over the fact that poor Jason probably didn't volunteer for this little experiment, but I guess that's not important. They open the coffin, and of course Gretchen is in horrible, horrible shape, to the point of she's little more than a mummy. Anita punches Jean-Claude in the face, ending Chapter 54. Jean-Claude catches Anita and tries to explain his position about keeping his line in order and yada yada yada. But he also explains that he fed on Gretchen's power because Richard and Anita refused to help him feed the hors d'oeuvre before it started to come through Anita, meaning she is partially responsible. After this fight, Jean-Claude hypnotizes Jason to make the feeding less traumatizing for him, and they restore Gretchen to full strength and take her away, leaving Anita to free Damien and ending chapter 55. And there you have it. Another group of chapters devoted to posturing male egos and Anita's continued asshat behavior. Still, we're coming up on the end of our beloved book, and soon we'll all be free of this pathetic excuse from fiction. Join me next time on Snark Theater when we find out the horror beneath the coffin firsthand.
When you're out at a club and you see a fly girl, do the creep, and do the creep. And if you wanna make friends,